Do you remember as a young child how many times somebody asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? You may have answered a doctor or a nurse, or maybe an actor or an astronaut. But chances are over the years you changed your mind several times and ended up following a very different path in life. Not for me. From my earliest memories, I always wanted to be a famous television reporter. Somebody who got to see and do things most people didn't, and then report about it on TV. To interview famous people and travel the world. When I was very, very young, I found my father's film camera in a closet inside our home. I begged him to buy me a roll of film. He did, and I made my very first film at the age of 4 years old. It was a film of my pet hamster running round and round on the wheel in its cage. Yeah, it was simple, but I was hooked. The idea of making a film that I could watch over and over again was mesmerizing to me. That and the fact I had an aunt who was a television reporter who got to interview famous people and go to exotic places just sealed in my mind what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was a very curious child, and they got me into a lot of trouble. When I was 8 years old, there were some baby alligators in the creek in front of my school in Georgia. All the kids every day would lean over the bridge and watch the baby alligators swim. But I wanted to do more. I wanted to catch one of those little alligators. And one day I took a rope, tied a noose around the end, I lowered it into the water, and I did just that. I caught the cute little baby alligator. And all the kids laughed and screamed as we started to walk towards home, me pulling the little baby alligator on a leash like a puppy. But up ahead, we saw some of the mothers in the neighborhood screaming and yelling and waving their arms. What we didn't know is that the mother alligator, an 8-foot monster, was closing in on us from behind, obviously unhappy that I had kidnapped her baby. I dropped the leash, we all ran for home, screaming like crazy. And I remember my father trying to teach me a lesson about what I'd done. Be careful what you wish for, son, because you might just get more than you bargained for. Careful what you wish for. It was a lesson in life I wouldn't learn for many years to come. Because for me as a young child, and later a young man, risk was part of obtaining any reward. And I was perfectly willing to risk anything to become a television news reporter. At the age of 14, I got my own home movie camera for my birthday, and I began filming everything. My dog, my friends, everywhere I went, everything I did. I was obsessed with filming everything. I even began to film my diaries instead of writing them down on paper. I'd turn the camera on myself, or I'd point it into a mirror and record my day-to-day thoughts. At the age of 17, I got my first broadcasting job as a radio DJ. From there, I went to college and studied journalism, and I even got to work as a television news reporter on the college TV station. My dream was coming true, but in the back of my head, I could still hear it. Careful what you wish for. Immediately out of college, I got my first real television news job in the small Texas city of Wichita Falls. I was assigned to be a crime reporter, and I quickly began following the police all over town. I saw a lot of dead bodies and a whole lot of crime. And while I was shocked at a lot of the things I'd seen, I realized this is what I dreamed of, to see things most people never did and report about them on TV. After that first year, I was hired as a crime reporter in Las Vegas. Las Vegas, one of the crime capitals of America. Criminals of every kind always came to Las Vegas. Immediately upon my arrival, the sheriff of Las Vegas issued me a handgun. He told me, Rick, you can't work in this town as a crime reporter without carrying a gun. There's just too much mafia and criminals running around. Over the next few years, I saw dozens of murders, bank robberies, even a few shootouts with the police. It seemed like scenes like that happened every week in Las Vegas. And I was becoming known as the reporter who always got the story. Nothing was too horrible, nothing too dangerous for me. It was all about seeing everything I could, experiencing everything I could. And it became like an addiction to me, to looking for, hoping for the next crime scene to occur. And with every horrible story I did, my bosses only praised me more. After 4 years in Las Vegas, I had won just about every journalistic award there was. So it was no surprise that one day I got a call from New York City. A new television show called Inside Edition wanted me as their star crime reporter. New York City. I was going to be covering the biggest crime stories in the world now, flying all over the world for the biggest stories of the day. I was on a lot of airplanes, sometimes 20 airplanes in a week, flying into whatever city in the world had the biggest news story of the day. Yeah, I flew a lot. Over 2 million miles in the first 3 years of working in New York City. I traveled to London to cover a terrorist story. I traveled to Australia and New Zealand for a kidnapping, to Paris for a murder story. Whatever story in the world was happening in whatever city, I was there. And over the next few years, I had interviewed countless criminals and a whole lot of Hollywood celebrities. And I was becoming quite famous myself, having been on TV for so many years. But I was also very lonely and getting even more lonely. I dated women around the world, but I never had time for a real relationship. I'd achieved my dream of traveling the world, but at what cost? Careful what you wish for kept coming back to me in my head. It was about that time that I began to grow tired of doing just crime stories. So I pitched an idea to the producers of Inside Edition that I wanted to do some adventure stories. I wanted to go out and do some things that people only dreamed of. They said okay, and I was off. I was set on fire for a Hollywood stunt. I walked on the wing of an airplane 3,000 feet above ground. I wrestled an 8-foot alligator. Yeah, that brought back some memories. I even swam with man-eating sharks. The more dangerous the adventure, the more of an adrenaline rush I got. And being on camera, I was becoming more and more famous. But the more and more dangerous stunts turned into sort of a death wish. The adrenaline junkie in me had come to life. And proving to an audience how fearless I was became like a drug. I needed it more and more just to feel alive. And it seemed I was no longer just documenting my day-to-day life. I was being challenged by the camera to push further and further to top each adventure stunt. But with each one of those daredevil stunts, I seemed to lose a little piece of myself. I broke bones, and I was injured quite often. And I was becoming more and more physically tired with every single story. I was also becoming reckless in my personal life. I married a girl who became pregnant on our third date. We didn't even know each other. But somehow in the back of my head, I thought it might help ground me some, having an instant family, give me some stability. Yeah, careful what you wish for. It was about that time I was sent to interview the bodyguard of a very famous Playboy playmate, Anna Nicole Smith. My company had promised the bodyguard $3,000 for the interview. But in the middle of that interview, he realized the payment hadn't been made, and he became furious. He pulled a gun, said he was going to hold the news crew and I hostage till he got his money. I managed to talk him into letting the news crew go, but he demanded I stay. And for the next several hours, he sat there snorting cocaine, his hand getting more and more shaky with the gun in my face. And I just waited for that moment he'd pull the trigger. Finally, though, the payment came, and he did allow me to leave. But I was a wreck. I collapsed in the parking lot. The combination of being mentally and physically exhausted, along with having been held hostage, had taken its toll. I had a complete nervous breakdown. I was sent home to Dallas, Texas to get professional help, and I was in therapy for the next 9 months suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. I couldn't work, I couldn't eat. All I could do was sit in the chair and take handfuls of pills from several doctors to try and keep my sanity. My new marriage was beginning to fall apart, and soon I lost my contract with my company. I was now unemployed with a new family and in no condition to work. But I had to do something. Television news was all I knew. It had been my whole career. So I went to another small Texas city and I got a news job, but it didn't last a year. I left the family and went to Oklahoma for another news job. It too didn't last a year. All the horrible crime scenes I had seen over the years, along with the hostage event, had left me mentally crippled. My wife and I soon divorced, and I thought now my life and career are over. But on the upside, getting away from the TV cameras seemed to settle me down some. That need to witness crime scenes slowly went away, and that desire to do adventurous, daredevil, death wish stunts began to disappear. I was truly beginning to live life on my own terms. It was at that time, a friend of mine came to me and said, "Rick, you need to make a film about your life. Take all your video diaries and all your professional on-air work, put it together, and make a documentary film." So it took 6 people 2 years to go through the thousands of hours of videotapes, but the film was made. And it was named TV Junkie, aptly so for my career in television and the various addictions that had brought me down. TV Junkie was an international success. It won the Sundance Film Festival's special prize for documentary film, and it was broadcast on networks around the world like HBO. Once again, I had become very, very famous. And beginning to heal from the PTSD, I set off on my own now and began filming TV commercials and videotaping weddings. And a few years into that, I came across this crazy character named Joe Exotic, who ran a tiger zoo in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma. I knew instantly I had to make a reality TV show about this crazy, eccentric character. So I moved into the zoo for a year, and I began filming everything I saw, and a lot of it was pretty horrible. I saw animals killed just to feed other animals, and Joe Exotic's brutality on his employees, making them eat food that was meant for the animals, and even treating their illnesses with animal drugs. Joe Exotic was crazy, and he was truly evil in many ways. I began to hate the very project I had started. And again in my head, careful what you wish for. After about that year in the zoo, I was just about finished with the reality show, and a fire broke out in the studio and burned all the video I'd been shooting. I decided to quit the project. I'd seen too many horrible things, too much evil. A short time after I left the zoo, Joe Exotic was arrested and put in prison for 22 years for trying to hire a hitman to kill a competitive zookeeper. That's when Netflix came to me, wanting to make a TV series about Joe Exotic and his crazy zoo. In 2020, Netflix began airing Tiger King, right at the same time the coronavirus was exploding around the world. Everybody was trying to stay home, watching TV, and trying to social distance. Tiger King became the most watched television series on Netflix in its entire history. Everybody was talking about Tiger King. And yet again, I was more famous than ever. But in a way, my father had been right. All those years, I had wished to travel the world, to interview famous people, and to do some extreme adventures. I've been recording them all. I'd become kind of a slave to the camera. I needed more and more to record all the time. Would I have been so eager to see all those crime scenes if there hadn't been a camera there to record them? Would my daredevil adventures have turned into a death wish had there not been a camera? I don't think so. All my life, I had lived through the lens of a camera instead of living life for myself. 6 months after that fire at the zoo, my own house caught on fire and nearly burned down on top of me. In the middle of the night, my little dog scratched on my chest and woke me up just as the flames burst into my bedroom. I was able to roll off the bed, throw my fist through a window, and then I went unconscious. I woke up a few days later in the hospital. I was rescued and I'd survived, but my little dog had not. And I had lost everything in the fire. All of my videos, my photographs, everything I own had been destroyed. But in losing my recorded memories, all that video, I kind of lost the desire to document anything anymore on film. I had truly been set free from the camera. Looking at my life and the world in a whole different way, I decided to move to Norway and marry my longtime girlfriend. It seemed like I'd been on stage all of my life, and now I was beginning to appreciate the simpler things. My father's words, "Careful what you wish for," had a new meaning for me. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. In a twist of irony, one thing seemed to survive that fire, miraculously. In the corner of my burned-down bedroom, I found a little blackened, charred bag under some debris. And in that bag, I found this, my video camera. It had survived the fire. It was completely intact and still in working order. The camera may have fueled a lot of my extreme ways through life, but it did have some positive benefits. It had been very therapeutic to me as I did my video diaries over the years. The camera had been my friend, and it'll always be a part of me. I'm so very proud of my incredible career, phenomenal career, and very, very happy with my life today. Wow, what a life it's been. Quite honestly, I didn't think I'd live to be this age. So a few words of wisdom from me to you when it comes to your life and your career and your dreams. First of all, fame or being popular, it's fleeting, it comes and goes. It just isn't reality. And finally, careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for, because you might just end up getting a whole lot more than you expected.